Dear Venerables, dear sisters, that today being the last day, last sermon, I would like to bring the attention to the last episode in this particular sutta. As we already explained, this particular sutta is based upon one particular stanza, that quotation from the early teaching of the Buddha, and it is asking someone to be aware of the two extremes and the middle. Even after understanding the middle, one must not be obsessed, one must not be attached to the middle, and that is how one can get rid of this, get rid from the fabrication, from the knotting, from the entanglement. So, in order to explain it, there were 6 commentaries along this particular sutta. At the first one, the particular Venerable take the contact as the main theme, and he see the contact itself and the arising of the contact is the two extremes. The difficult thing to tackle is the understanding is the cessation of the very contact, and even someone managed to understand the cessation, one must not get attached to it, and then that is how one can be a great man as well as get out of this entanglement. The second person explained the same with the past and the future, and our mind is already obsessed with the past and the future, never allowing it to be in the present, and knowing that even if someone bring the attention to the present moment, here and now, one must not attach to it, and that is how one can be suitable to call as a great person, and can escape from this fabrication. And the third interpretation is the pleasurable feeling and the painful feeling, or in terms of feelings, and middle part is the no pain, no pleasure situation. Even one can get into this no pain, no pleasure, seen through this pain and pleasure, one must not get attached into this no pain, no pleasure situation, and that is how one can develop the greatness in the mind and not to get hooked up with the entanglement. The fourth interpretation is the mentality and physicality are the two extremes, keep our mind occupied, but if someone can see through them, he or she can understand the role of the Vanga, the consciousness, the Vijnana, and then even after understanding and isolating the consciousness, one must not attach to it, and that is how one can develop or purify the mind and go into the not falling into the trap of this fabrication. The other one is 6 sense bases or 6 faculties, namely the internal faculties and the external faculties, usually manage to keep our mind, obsess our mind, and so that we fail to see the function of the consciousness, the vijnana. And whenever someone manage to see through these internal and external faculties, and he or she can understand the magician, the consciousness, and even understand it, tackle it and isolate it, one must not attach to it. That is how can escape from this fabrication or entanglement. The last one was the self-based or self-centered notion, and its arising is the two extremes. If someone can manage to see through them or take the situation under control, he or she may see the cessation of the very self-notion or self-centered idea, and that is a great achievement. Even then one must not attach into this self-notion or the cessation of the self-notion or self-centered idea, and that is how one can escape from this entanglement, from this fabrication. So after reporting to the omniscient one, the omniscient one says that I appreciate all are good, all are appreciable interpretations from their individual perspective, from their individual viewpoints. But anyway, referring back to the original quotation, the Buddha, the omniscient one, says his basic idea was to explain this through the contact. That is the first interpretation we presented so far. So this is the conclusion or the last episode along this particular sutta. So when we are going through this kind of deep or profound discourses, one may tends to think that we must have a very good understanding on the theory, very good understanding on the other principles, must have enough wisdom coming with your birth and lot of merits and good Pali understanding and complete devotion whole day, something like that one may tend to think, because of course the teaching itself is profound. But what I took time is to say, even without this all so-called basic qualifications, if you manage to maintain the mindfulness, that's a assuring character, assuring mental factor that will gradually provide you with all the necessary conditions so that ultimately you will achieve the task. So, can the single mental factor like mindfulness do such a great task? So that is what we discuss in the Singlish Dhamma talk. And there I quoted Venerable Jnanaponika's book, named as called as The Power of Mindfulness. And there he, in his introduction itself, he raised this question and presented very nice cross-section about this the question as well as the answer. So I would like to go a little into the expansion on the same idea, how grateful is the power of mindfulness. He is Venerable Jnanaponika. This is the book that I would like to present it, and it is very cheaply available in Buddhist Publication Society as well as in the Buddhist Cultural Center. It says, is really the power of mindfulness is pregnant with this kind of intrinsic qualities. He himself accepts, many will answer as no, because no one has given such a emphatic view, emphatic value to this simple or single mental factor called mindfulness. And many believe their faith, their energy, their concentration and wisdom is more colorful and more beneficial than the mindfulness. So therefore, whenever the faith is there, they are very happy. When the faith is not there, they become desperate and disappointed. When the energetic, they are happy, but when it is not there, equally they are desperate. Many are taken by this concentration. Everyone thinks the meditation means concentration. When it comes, they are happy, but unfortunately, concentration as such, it is at a time disappearing. Or at least, many will interpret to say that wisdom is the most proximate thing and immediate effect of this meditation, and when the wisdom happens, everything is there. But when Jnanaponika, the author of this book, is arguing, and he says, these things are of course giving a very good quick impacts, but unpredictable and uncredible. Though they are going to give miraculous effect, But only single factor, only valuable factor in mindfulness is, mindfulness never claimed that kind of quick achievement. There is no such immediate results, but once started, slowly and steadily it will grow. So the beginners expect quick results, expect immediate results, therefore they tend to neglect the mindfulness and they try to keep the faith, the energy, the concentration and the wisdom like mental factors more in a valuable form than the mindfulness. So that is why many people searching for quick results, good teachers, good meditation centers, good techniques and everything. But if someone managed to give them proper place in their own perspective, then the meditation will be steadfast, meditation will be formal, and meditation will be slowly progressing. Under such situation, the author is arguing that mindfulness is the one has to take the chair. And he argue and say this is the prime task of the Buddha. Before the Buddha, in the Indian situation, the faith has been already recognized and they have already done miraculous. And the energy, the concentration and the wisdom. But he was the only person recognized the due value of the mindfulness, and he kept the mindfulness in the forefront or give the chair. That is why the Satipatthana, the four foundation of mindfulness, are recognized as the one of the most important discourses of the Buddha. But even in Sri Lanka or in any other traditional Theravada countries, it has been maintained even after the great demise of the Buddha, up to the 1,000 and 1,500 years, to keep the mindfulness as such in the forefront line. But unfortunately, their own word, they have perspective has been changed, and all the other colorful mental factors come forward, and mindfulness has lost the ground. And that is the fate. It is not only limited to Sri Lanka, all the other countries. But the most important opportunity for we in the present generation is, for the last 30 to 40 years, maybe about 50 years, again now the mindfulness gaining the power. If we are not making that trend, we are the losers. So therefore, even though we have religious the qualities, even we have all the past good merits, till you keep the mindfulness in the correct perspective, you are not in the least frictional path. You are not aligned with the power line. Power line has to be straightened. The mindfulness is the main thing in that sense. So when we are studying about these 6 interpretations, each and every one is highlighting and giving some attributes of the mindfulness, and that is very encouraging. And some of the qualities are, mindfulness itself never asks any qualification at the outset. Whatever you have is enough. You have nothing to worry, I have no this quality, that quality. It is giving you the formula how to start from the here and now. So mindfulness is asking here and now. Never ask something not achieved, not available, so it is down to earth kind of interpretation. And the second thing is, at the beginning, at the outset, even though the here and now, the available qualities and the merit enough, you must never stop at the superficial level. Whatever the arising, you must be ready, you must be diligent, you must be vigilant to see and observe closely as and when the object arises. Under such circumstances, if you wish to penetrate into, if you wish to plunge into the object must be a recurrent one, not occasional one. If the object is happening again and again, once you tame the object so that it is face to face with your noting mind or meditative mind, as and when it happens, you have to be prepared to see the arising part of the object. For example, if you are observing the in-breath and out-breath, or if you are observing the rising and falling of the abdomen, or if you are noting the left leg, right leg in the walking meditation, first and foremost, you have to make the object face to face with the primary object. The noting mind. That means some kind of isolation of the object and keep the other hindrances at bay. And when that happens, you can say that mindfulness start to work, it started routine. But never you must be happy thinking that now you have achieved. Instead you must understand, now you see the object very superficial manner, you must sink into that, penetrate into that, plunge into that. In order that, what you have to do is, as and when the object arises, you have to run into that just like a football player. Always you have to be on the ball. This indicates the term negligence and the diligence. If you are negligent, object will come and come up to the maturity till that you are not ready. You are not prepared. But if you are diligent, as and when the object arises, your attention is there. So therefore you can manage, you will manage to see the arising part of the object, arising part of the in-breath, arising part of the out-breath. At the beginning you see the in-breath and out-breath, that is already arisen. As and when the mindfulness progress, where your attention should be is to see the arising in-breath, arising out-breath. So that you are learning and training with the materiality. Ultimately, once the mind develops this quality of mindfulness, that is called steadfast mindfulness, ultimately you can see the arising emotions or arising mental aspects also with the same token. So when that happens, that along the 6 interpretation it says, the mind easily can be trained to see the contact and the arising of the contact. Mind can be easily trained into the arising of the painful feeling and the pleasurable feeling. But even then, if you become happy or contented, your progress will be hindered. Instead, you must understand, not the middle, not the beginning. You have to advance further to see the end of the phenomena. Generally, in the interpretation on mindfulness, or rather specifically on the insight meditation, it is simply, whatever the object may be, your task is to see the beginning, the middle and the end. Or it says, starting from the beginning, through the middle, your attention must be steadfast, continuous, and must be vigilant up to the very end. Then only you can claim you have observed the object. That means the mindfulness is steadfast going forward. So when that happens, there are a lot of changes, there are a lot of critical aspects going to manifest, because our mind is, from the time since unknown beginning, always managed and happy to see only the middle and the beginning. The seeing or observation of the end, in the normal values, social values, we considered as unauspicious, destructive and deteriorating. We are happy to feel new friends and the people, and we are happy to hear the birth. But whenever the funeral happens, we get disturbed. We feel uncomfortable. Each and every phenomena is the same. When the flower buds and the bloom, full bloom flowers, we consider as a sign of aesthetic and the beauty. But when the flower is dropping the petals and going deterioration, is not a good sign. So that indicates in general, we are not happy to see the end of the phenomena. So when the mindfulness is progressing, by the time you see the end, it appears like something uncomfortable, something fearful, uncertain, boring, monotonous, sleepy, slimy, all the kind of characters. So that is the point where you must have good theoretical understanding. This is not your mistake. It is not due to the lethargic nature of your mind, because you see the end at the last, seeing the middle and the beginning at the beginning. And when you are seeing the end, you are well tired in the sitting meditation. You are well exhausted. So therefore you feel sometimes it is due to the energy aspect. No, this is not energy aspect. This is not your own misunderstanding. It is not due to your mistake. This is the fact. It's a law of principle. So whenever this boredom arises, you must understand to note it and face it. That is why the mindfulness is known as choiceless awareness. You must not choose to see only the bright side of the phenomena. You must be aware of it choicelessly, the bright side as well as the dark side, the welcoming side as well as the outgoing side, the desirable side as well as the undesirable side. Only the mindfulness can take this as a task. The faithful character will never take it. If you are worrying only on the concentration, you will never take it as a task. Only the mindfulness can do. So therefore, if you wish to see the middle path, you must understanding in middle path is always with the mask of boredom, of monotony, of fearfulness, uncertainty, unknown, incredible. So when that happens, if you are well instructed and if you are really armed with the mindfulness, you can understand it's a very good, not a bad omen, it's a good omen. So once that kind of perspective change, the very boredom, the very monotonous situation can be going to give a very gladful, happy and a rapturous kind of feeling. That is also a trap. So therefore, even if you are treading on the path of mindfulness, of middle path, you must not be wavering or shaky and attached to the path. You must understand you must understand it as a instrument rather than the end. So when that kind of development of the mindfulness happen, you have to understand how profound is the teaching of the Buddha. So he tried to teach all these things in the linear language, though it is happening in the matrix. So therefore, as and when the mind meditation progress, mindfulness itself is changing its facets. Your liking and disliking also will be changed. Your personality also changed. That is what we call evolution. That is what we call metamorphosis, changing. But those who are with the stereotype ideas, wish not to change, or fooled-headed, ultimately end up with craziness. End up with fighting with your own experiences. So therefore, when the mindfulness happens, it is inviting you to be humble and accepting any changes, and you see only the adaptability to the situation. So these all characters the mindfulness is possessing naturally, but it's a matter of appreciation the same. And if you are appreciating and if you are progressing, even though you are yet to achieve the final goal, you can taste it, you can feel the nature of the final goal. These are the attributes of the mindfulness. So these all Theravada Maha Mahatheras or the great teachers always say, therefore you must have the fair understanding of theory knowledge, and then while you are putting forth the effort, the uncertain, unpredictable thing happen. But by advancing slowly, you will understand the teaching of the Buddha and the theory knowledge with your own experience, and more you advance, you will depend highly upon the mindfulness rather than other mental aspects like faith, the energy, concentration and the wisdom. So therefore you will be less and less religious, I am sorry to say. At the beginning you have to be very religious. You have to be faithful and everything, but more and more you become mindful, you will be, according to the present terminology, you will be rather scientist rather than the religious. That means you will be losing the mystic grounds and go to the realistic ground. So many consider this is unbecoming. This is not the Thero, rather therefore we have to always be with the all the soft characteristics like. But unfortunately, you become one-to-one relationship, no mystics. Everything you can understand as and when the mindfulness increases. And under such circumstances, you can see, even for one particular stanza, you can give not only 6, not only half a dozen, dozens of interpretations. That is how the diversification of the mind happens. As and when the mind is purified and go forward, you can see many facets of the same principle, same philosophy, same matter. So that is what we call the development of the mind or cultivation of the mind. So personally, I also believe, and there is a general notion in the society, and as this book also indicates, the main thing you have to keep upright, keep at your fingertip is the mindfulness. So therefore you have to take time to understand the mindfulness theoretically and rationalize with the deductive knowledge, and always in the meditation, please don't chase behind the faith, chase behind the energy, chase behind the concentration and the wisdom. Instead, if the mindfulness is there, definitely understand, you have to understand mind is progressive, thought by thought. So therefore, simple formula for me, Buddhism means meditation. Meditation means inside meditation. Inside meditation means mindful. So if you are mindful, you are fulfilling your internal dispensation as well as the external dispensation. Ultimately, your whole the other rest of the necessary thing will be fulfilled by the single aspect of mindfulness, and you must allow when and where the development going to take place. You must just accommodate. You are just adopting to that, and ultimately whole life will be on the simple aspect of mindfulness. Thank you very much. That is what I wanted to share at the end of, as the conclusive talk.
So, will you explain about the book in English?
So that is why I gave the translation basically today on this book. So I would like to introduce this book, and I can leave some free copies with the chief manual, and please read it. If you do not have any objections, I am wholeheartedly recommending this. Don't worry about the meditation techniques, just understand what is the meaning of mindfulness, then your path will be straightened. And this book is freely available in Colombo Market, in the bookshops, Buddhist Publication Society, and Buddhist Cultural Center also you have this. And at the end of this book, not this book, sometimes they recommend further readings. Bhante, I understand that mindfulness always occurs together with awareness, as one of awareness characteristic is asammoha. Asammoha is the task of awareness. Why here you mention only mindfulness? Should it be mentioned as mindfulness as awareness? This is called sati sampajanya. It is called mindfulness is sati, sampajanya is
clear awareness, clear comprehension. So these two are just like the needle and the thread. You can't separate it out. When you are knitting, needle is going forward and accordingly the thread coming. Needle is mindfulness, it's very straightforward, blindfolded, and it is bending everything. But once the mindfulness gone, the bendable thread come and put the knot, do the task. So therefore, don't worry about the thread coming behind, drive the mindfulness, and then you will be go there. Or otherwise it says that the blind and the crippled person, crippled. And the mindfulness is the blind. The awareness is the cripple. So blind has come up, the cripple has to climb up to the blind person, and then both can work together as a one single person. And the blind will take the way, the awareness will give the guide. So they has to go together. Without that, individually they are paralyzed. So therefore here all the important thing what I would like to mention thanks to this question is, always mindfulness has to forerun. Mindfulness is the one making the room for the clear comprehension to happen, the awareness happen.